in my experience, most teams and new systems require like intentional design for the culture to be just right, in order for it to be productive, in order for people to feel like they belong and that they are contributing. This is going to be a little bit of a longer video, not too long, but just a little bit long. I think when you create a team aspect, a team culture, you're working on a team, you're creating a new system. There are three key elements that I want to talk about in this video that I think make those teams pop or make them productive, or they have a sense to them. Like you're like, yeah, they get it, right? And I feel like I've unlocked a few levels of understanding for myself, and I just want to share them here. So this year, we had a new curriculum in our school district, the work that I do by day. And we didn't have a system for how the new curriculum was going to go from a really great launch to implementation. And so I created the idea, the semblance of a system, this idea that across the 4 elementary buildings that we would have one team representative from each of the grade levels come together to form what is called our lead teachers. These lead teachers would be tasked with unpacking the units and the new curriculum sort of a week or two in advance of them sharing it with their team to help their team move forward by feeling productive and decisive and confident about what they were teaching, rather than just leaving the curriculum on the shelf and having teachers do this individually. And in order to create that system, in order to create some level of cohesion, I was tasked with figuring out how to facilitate these meetings. And so, of course, we came up with structural elements, but it's like, where did we start? And where we started was with safety, psychological safety. And that's the first element to creating a sort of culture that can thrive and flourish on its own. So that's the first element, creating that psychological safety, and sort of the psychological safety that I'm referring to. And you can get into the deep weeds around Amy Edmondson's work and what she's done with psychological safety. But in a nutshell, we wanted people to have their hands in the work. And I'll probably mention this on a few different videos, but what we call making sure that everybody has an egg to crack or contribute. So the idea of psychological safety is, yes, we want to hear everyone's voice. We want to make sure that all voices are heard and that you feel safe to share your ideas and they're not withdrawing or not contributing because you don't feel safe. We want to hear the ideas that all of our teachers have. So creating that psychological safety is intentional because it means that you have to have opportunities inside of the system or the agenda for which people can share what's on their mind. You have to have a protocol that allows people to voice an opinion or share a perspective. And that was the first sort of big high level move that we made, was really developing that trust, developing or being intentional about what is psychological safety and how do we cultivate it? How do we make sure that people feel heard, that people feel like they can share their perspective without sort of having their head ripped off or some other version of that, right? And that was our first real element. And that still rings true in our meetings today after 5 or 6 meetings across the year. The second thing that we really had to be mindful of was sharing our own, as facilitators, our own vulnerability, our own stories of just sort of getting in there, working with things, not being so sure, and relying on the room as the smartest person. So all of the people that were contributing at this point, everyone had an egg to crack, to put into the batter, the mix, whatever. And that helped us because it allowed us permission as facilitators to not have all of the answers, but to be of service of finding the answers and admitting when we didn't know something, or admitting that this was going to be a longer journey, that things should and will change over the 5 or 6 meetings that we have across the school year. Sharing that vulnerability made space for everyone else to feel as though they too could share their vulnerability. The final sort of part of all of this was to make sure that we establish some purpose. And the purpose that we ended up sharing, or that I ended up drawing up, it just sort of came in the way of these 4 elements here that I shared with colleagues. There was no formal slideshow about purpose or how do we get to purpose. It was really just talking about the strength of what we thought was a really great system and sharing the purpose and the vision for the system so that everyone who was involved in the system could feel as though they had a part, but also could move forward and get behind the ideas. So the elements were, we wanted to make sure that we empowered educators. We empowered the educators who were with us as lead teachers, but that they too would go back and empower the educators that are in their buildings, empower them through decision making. We wanted it to be that when you're looking at your curriculum and you're having to make decisions, that you feel confident to make a decision that is right for students. So that empowerment comes with design. We had to be intentional about where are the moments in the lead teacher meetings and the structure of our agenda that people could have a moment where they felt empowered to make a decision on how they see a task or make a decision about the types of books that they would read or supplement or use inside of those units. The next sort of vision that we had or goal or purpose that we had around this was we as lead teachers and as instructional coaches are facilitators are here as a role of support. There are a lot of high level leaders that we have that if we got the information to them, that they too could be responsible about where they see their support. So we're just one layer of the support as a unit. We're not here to make all of the decisions about when things start or what to cut or what to add. We're really here to voice our opinions, have some part of it being empowered to share our ideas about what we're doing. But then it's really up to making sure that that role of support has sort of concentric overlapping layers of other support and other systems. So our system as a whole, if you think about it as like plates, our system was like bumping up against other systems. So our role of support could feed their support levels too. The next one was creating consistency. We really wanted to create some consistency around how people went through and unpacked the units and the curriculum that they were launching into so that everybody had some sort of shared experience. Because again, these are 4 elementary buildings, K-5, that are then funneling to 168. So there had to be some created systems around there's a shared consistency that everybody's sort of on the same page. So hopefully these meetings would create, by nature of unpacking the units, would create some consistencies. And then the final one was really to streamline to make things simple and easily digestible by our colleagues, but also easy, not like in the sense of like easy, like we're going to kick our feet up and do nothing, but like easy that the things that we were putting in front of people that they felt like, yeah, I could do that. I feel good about the things that we are trying to accomplish with our curriculum and I get it, but also it's very entry level, like ease of administration, not ease of content. We didn't ease up on any of the rigor, but we really took it from a level of like, how do we make the things that we're saying easy for other people who have limited time to really sink their teeth into and metabolize that information. So that was our sort of shared purpose, our phase 2. We had psychological safety, our phase 3. Psychological safety, sharing your vulnerability, like we admit that the room is the smartest person, and then really getting into that established purpose of what we're doing and why we're doing that thing. And what has happened over these sort of last 5 meetings that we've had at each of the grade levels, so all 6 of the grade levels, you can see it start to show up. People feel safe to voice their opinions. They admit when they don't know things and they go out and seek answers and responses and pathways with our team as facilitators and instructional coaches. And even when administration comes in, you can see that people are still sharing their voice, they're sharing their ideas, and they're not holding back. They're giving their perspective, and our administrators have done a great job of making people feel safe to continue to do that. And I feel like that's what's making for like a rich culture. And to be honest with you, and I said this from the outset when I first came up with the system, and then also moving into like the idea of the first meeting, which was a little bit bumpy. You know, you're going over things like your vision, you're talking about what we're going to do, you have a little bit of an agenda. People aren't really sure of how they're going to work together. But through all of the protocols, all of the agendas, all of our great facilitators and instructional coaches that we have on these teams, the talent that we have in the room is evident. It's on display. People are sharing their ideas. And we said at the outset, I remember standing there in August and in September with people and saying, if our fifth meeting is the same as our first meeting, we've done something wrong. And we have grown as a unit. Our coaching group has learned so much from each of our grade level colleagues on how they're seeing the curriculum, how they're interacting with it. And we have moved forward. It is different. It is a system that functions a little bit different, even to the point where our agendas are reflectively changed as a result of the work that we've been doing and amassing as a unit. Now, where do you start? And I think this is always the thing when you think about these three elements that come from Dan Coyle's work and the culture code. You start with trust. Finding ways to establish trust has been the biggest level unlock that I think our team did really well up front. We established trust that we are here for our colleagues, we're here for the people in the classrooms, and we're doing our best. We don't have all the answers, but we want to be right there with you and trying to figure things out as a unit. And establishing that trust and never wavering from the trust earned has been the key element here. The second thing that I think we did really well is making sure that we open up. We share that vulnerability. When we don't know something or we're not sure, we're willing to get in there and work with it until we have figured out a solution or a possible solution or pathway that could work for many people. Again, expressing that vulnerability. And the final thing here is making sure that we empower people with a shared purpose. They're part of the purpose. They're part of the shared vision that we have around the work that we're doing. And we remind them of that through our norms and sort of our working agreements that we have in there. And those are all the embedded elements that come over time. But if you had to start with trust, make sure you open up through vulnerability, and make sure you have some sort of established purpose so that your team can really function with you and that there's no hierarchical status around how you're moving forward. It's the goal that is pulling you forward. I hope this helps. Just sharing my journey and the things that are on my mind. If you want to hear more about that or anything that we did with our lead teachers around curriculum, I'd be happy to share it. But again, this comes from the work of Dan Coyle and the Culture Code. I think it's a recommended read. It's a black book that is on my shelf back here. You can get it. It is fantastic, and I highly recommend it. So thanks for being here. I appreciate all you do.